3 o'clock in the morning, more than 300 heavily armed Taliban militants swarmed into 2 transport terminals, burning at least 160 vehicles loaded with supplies for US and NATO forces in Afghanistan. The following night, a similar attack was carried out just 2 kilometers away. In the second strike, more than 100 trucks and 50 containers were destroyed. Experts believe the Taliban want to use those attacks on fuel, food and other equipment for coalition forces to fan the flames of US worries over the Afghan mission.
Those attacks on the supply terminals are Taliban's provocation to the US. They want to strike first. They know that more than 70% of the supplies for US and NATO forces have been transported from Peshawar through the Khyber Pass to Afghanistan. So, by cutting supply lines, they believe the Allies can now stay long.
The US has seen examples of the Taliban's aggressive behavior before. Just a month ago, the US suffered a huge embarrassment when Taliban militants drove around and captured US Army Humvee in Peshawar. The increasing activities of recent months by the Taliban are pushing the US to strengthen its military power in Afghanistan.
This is a tough situation there. We are going to have additional troops and additional help. There's a stalemate that exists, and we're going to need additional troops.
As more troops deploy in Afghanistan, the main battlefield of the anti-terrorism war is transferring. While violence in Iraq drops, attacks by a resurgent Taliban in Afghanistan have spiked in the last 2 years. US President-elect Barack Obama has said he will wrap up the war in Iraq and focus on Afghanistan.
As president, I will make the fight against Al-Qaeda and the Taliban the top priority that it should be. This is a war we have to win. I will send at least 2 additional combat brigades to Afghanistan.
However, statistics show the war in Afghanistan is not easy to win. It's estimated that 2008 has been the deadliest year for US troops since the 2001 invasion. The number of casualties is expected to surpass last year's 111. The Afghan security situation is getting worse.
An interesting coincidence has been seen in the US. Every new president probably faces an unexpected security issue soon after taking office. Bill Clinton got Somalia and George W. Bush got the 9/11 terror attacks. Time after time, an unexpected turn in world events rewrote a president's agenda and tested his abilities in crisis management. Will Barack Obama be an exception? We don't know, but one thing is for sure, Barack Obama faces big challenges.
With its rugged terrain and limited infrastructure, Afghanistan is tough to get into, but even tougher to leave. More than a century ago, Afghans drove the British out, killing more than 16,000. And in 1979, they forced out the Soviet Union, following a 10-year occupation that cost the Red Army 15,000 men. Today, relying on geographic advantages, Taliban fighters turn their hit-and-run tactics on the Western forces, and they are increasingly finding safe havens. Afghanistan is not only a fertile ground for defiance, but also for the poppy plant. As the world suffers through a financial crisis, the Taliban will benefit by as much as $500 million from the opium trade in 2008, 5 times the previous year's figure. As its economic ability strengthens, the Taliban's military forces also develop fast. According to a think tank's report, the Taliban has controls of nearly 3/4 of Afghanistan this year, up sharply from just over half last year. South South Asia is being drawn deeper into the fray. Most of the terrorists who struck Mumbai, India on November the 26th died, along with nearly 200 innocent victims. But they achieved what appears to be their prime goal, raising India-Pakistan tensions.
According to the evidence provided by the Indian government, the Mumbai attacks were run by Lashkar-e-Taiba, a Pakistani-based Islamic terrorist organization which has long worked with Al-Qaeda. It's speculated that one of the aims of their terrorist attacks is to undermine relations between India and Pakistan, then to push Pakistan to withdraw some of their troops from the northwest frontier province and move them back to the border with India, giving Taliban and Al-Qaeda militants more free space to conduct terrorist activities.
The threat of terrorism hangs over the subcontinent. Rooting it out has been an urgent mission for the US. However, the military option is not the whole answer.
The US will retain military action as its priority, but history shows this tactic alone does not stabilize the Afghan security situation. The US should take more measures to improve living conditions for people, balance social and economic development, build more roads, and clear up the breeding ground for terrorists.
Afghanistan's security is shattered by bombs. Peace would seem to be nothing more than a dream to ordinary people. The real triumph for the US war in Afghanistan would be to help the Afghan people live without pain and scars, without terror and tragedy.
Let's wrap this story up. The recent attacks in South Asia remind Barack Obama to acknowledge that US national security is as urgent as the financial turmoil and that terrorism remains its top external threat. For Obama, Afghanistan has the potential to be another Iraq.